So I'd like to share some of the things I've been learning through these meditations over this last few years, or 10 years really, or more, that has brought me to a completely different understanding of myself and the reality that we are part of, which includes the physical, because we are experiencing the physical through our bodies. We are in the body, and all our senses and everything is revealing to us a reality that we then believe in. And this is what the mind is doing. It's translating everything for us into a belief system which we then hold as true, as if it is the only reality that exists. But if we look at what we actually do see with the physical eyes, and hear with the physical ears, and sense with the physical body, we can come to the understanding that we're actually only experiencing a tiny fraction of what is here, of the whole. So we're not seeing the whole of everything. We're seeing just a tiny sliver on the surface. This is why we only ever see the surface of everything that's physical. We only ever see a molecular structure on the surface where it reflects light back to us. We don't see anything beyond that. And that's also true of the body. We don't see anything inside the body. We only see the layer of skin on the surface, which is reflecting a portion of light back to ourselves. And there's a reason for this, that the body doesn't see any of this. Because if we saw into everything, we wouldn't believe that we were separate from everything. If we saw into ourselves and saw into the physical nature of everything, we would lose the understanding that we are separate beings, and therefore what we call our egoic mind, which is the mind in separation, which is really the meaning of the devil in a way, or evil. It's outside of God. That when we see ourselves outside of heaven, we are seeing ourselves as a separate entity existing in a universe outside ourselves. But if our body was able to see everything, or if we were able to see everything as it truly is, and we see into everything, we would lose the belief in separation, and therefore we would lose the belief in hurting other people, destroying anything. We would not see the sense in any of it. None of that would make sense. Making laws against each other, imprisoning each other, enslaving each other, keeping some in poverty and others in riches. All this will become meaningless, because if we are connected to everything, then everything, our happiness is dependent on everything. So the eyes don't see everything. The eyes see only a tiny sliver of the known electromagnetic light spectrum. They reckon, science says, like 0.035% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. If you take into account the new science of dark matter, which is basically an energy that we know is there, but our instruments cannot detect it, then that number is reduced even more drastically. And from what I have researched, it is about like 1 in 3 trillionths of the reality that we're seeing. Now that is a very tiny amount of what is there that we are actually witnessing to. And this is giving us the reality that we think is the total of reality, but it's actually not the total. And science, quantum physics, proves this. You know, the physical world is not as solid as we think it is, as we perceive it is. So the eyes are fooling us, they are deceiving us. And because of that, we are thinking of ways to save ourselves from an environment that we basically don't understand. This is why we're learning everything. From the minute we're born, we are learning. We are learning what our environment is. We're learning what the world is. We're learning the meanings of everything. We're learning the meanings of ourselves, our bodies. All these things we are learning and we're teaching ourselves and we believe in what we're teaching, okay? But because we're not seeing everything completely, we are literally teaching ourselves what is not true. And the spiritual meaning of following a spiritual path is to see more wholly what is real. And therefore that requires unlearning all the things that we thought were true and allowing the wisdom of reality to be ours. Because in truth, we are not separate from everything, and in truth, everything is still within us and outside of us, and we are part of that. We're not separate from it. So the spiritual kind of work is really about self-realization, realizing we are part of everything and everything is part of us, and that we're not victims of this. So it's literally seeing ourselves not as physical beings but as spiritual beings. But the body is a spiritual vehicle. I mean, the body is a physical vehicle, and it's experiencing a reality in relation to itself, and this is what we're believing in. And all the time we think that is the sum total, we are limiting. We have limited our mind to create. So this is why in the world we actually don't create, we make. We make one thing from something else. So we take this and we turn it into something else, but in doing so we've lost what this is, because this has now disappeared to have that. You know, we chop down a tree so that we can build a house or make a chair, but we've lost the tree, you know, but we've made a chair or a house. Creation doesn't work like that. Creation is miraculous because, you know, you've only got to look at the physical, the laws of nature, is that everything is reproducing itself in abundance by division. And so one thing, one cell becomes two cells, and then those become two more cells, and then those become, and so exponentially creation is expanding itself outwards. Or out or in, I don't know. You know, if everything is one, then where's out or in, you know? But it's expanding, it's growing, it's becoming more abundant. And because we don't see ourselves as part of that, we see ourselves in lack and in poverty. Now, so to understand that we're not physical beings, that we're spiritual beings, we actually have to see that as a truth. And then once we see it, we can believe it, and then our mind changes. And then we actually recognize that actually things are coming to us. Everything that we've asked for is being given to us, not because we have to make it, but actually because it's part of creation. It's already here. It might not be here in the physical sense, but the physical isn't real, isn't as real as we think it is. And so if you desire or wish for something, or you will for something to happen or to be, it will be, if you will for it long enough. So, you know, also the spiritual path is also a path of patience. You ask for something and you just wait patiently. And depending on, you know, when is the right time, it comes. You know, for myself, I've not worked for 20 odd years. And even when I did work, it was an amazing job of photography where I was just playing. And I realized even then that you don't make money out of working, you make money out of using your mind. And I was just playing, you know, thinking I was creative, but I was being creative in a way. I was doing advertising, so how creative is advertising, you know? It's got paid a lot of money, but it doesn't really serve everybody, you know? So I didn't do it, you know, I actually pulled out of my work eventually, not because I didn't like it, but it was just time to move into another path. But that path I didn't realize was going to take me down to a longer path of self-realization. And it all started when I started going into very intense fears, and it was mostly related around money. Because I wasn't working, I wasn't having an income, and yet I had a wife and I had a child, and my wife also didn't work or doesn't work, and yet we needed obviously money. And we needed, you know, everything that everyone else needs. but I kept receiving this voice inside which was telling me, don't work, don't do that, don't get busy, concentrate on the fears, go into the fears. And then through that, it has revealed to me the nature of the self, which is non-physical, the nature of reality, which is also non-physical, the connection and the meaning of this to the self, and how we are blessed by it all. We're not cursed by it all, And in this way, death loses its meaning, because the body is not who we are. Therefore, the body actually, we think the body's alive, but it's actually us, or the spirit, the soul, which is alive, and it brings life, it permeates the body and brings life to the body. These are concepts that take a while to come to understand, but because wholeness is understandable, or reality is understandable as a whole, it's reasonable, it makes sense because we are part of it. It does come to us eventually. It does dawn in our minds that actually this is the situation, this is what is going on here. Part of the problem that we face as human beings is that everything is separate and separate from each other. So one thing seems to make sense over there, but it doesn't make sense over there. This is why we always compartmentalize everything, because we don't want to bring it together, because if we brought it together, it wouldn't make sense. So if we try and make sense of things that are not actually understandable in reality, but they seem to make sense here because we're seeing everything in separation. So the idea of wholeness or unity makes sense together, but it's a process of unlearning about our separation, and by doing that allows the mind to open up to all the wisdom that is in reality ours, because we have never actually left it. And the mind that we actually have is still the mind of a creative, loving being, which I call God, same as most people, but whatever you want to call the name of that being, doesn't matter. So the body is an experience that we're going through for a short period of time. Even time is just part of this reality, of this physical reality. In eternity, which reality is part of, which reality is, it's eternal. Time is meaningless. So when we see ourselves in reality, time has disappeared. Time becomes meaningless. This is also part of the concept of being in the present. Don't go into the past, don't go into the future, focusing on the present. But at the moment, there's a lot of fear in the present, in our lives. And the only way through that is to come into the present, because whenever we look back into the past, we see all the atrocities and the craziness and the madness of the past. And then when we look into the future, it looks like, oh my God, the future is going to be, probably worse than the past. And we become hopeless, and we become fearful, and we become confused, and we do stupid things. We make stupid choices because we're operating from a place of lack. We're operating from a place of victimhood. We're operating from a place of fear. But going into these meditations of seeing inside oneself the reality of who we are in reality, we realize that we're not victims, and that we actually have the blessings of a loving creator that not only is inside us, but completely surrounds us. We are part of that, and we've never left that. All the illusions of fear start to disappear once we see who we are in reality. And therefore, abundance comes to us. We don't have to work to make a living. We don't, because we're already living, and living is given to us, and all the means for living is given to us, and all the means for abundance is given to us. We don't have to do anything. So this is a message for especially people who are suffering, loss of money, fear of loss of money, fear of not having enough, fear of losing their homes, fear of not having a job, fear of not having work, all these kind of things, fear of losing what's in their bank account, all these kind of things can get answered together. All the time we're busy trying to answer these things outside ourselves, getting busy doing this, getting busy doing that, thinking that that's going to save me, or something else is going to save me, or earning money is going to save me, or getting a job, or getting a better job, or let me study this, or let me study that. We think all these things are part of what's going to save us, but in truth, what's going to save us, or the meaning of salvation, is ultimately found inside ourselves. It's the truth of our being. Coming to the realization of that, one realizes that everything in the universe is conspiring to help us, is conspiring to give us everything we ask for. So we literally just have to ask for it, which is the power of our will. And when our will is aligned to the will of creation, or the will of God, then our will has power and everything comes to us. Speaking for myself, I've not worked and earned money in a working environment for more than 20 years. And like I said, I didn't before then. I actually played. I played with photography. I made images, and I loved it. It was amazing. But these fears, when I stopped doing that and I started fearing that I wasn't going to have enough money, or we were going to be left destitute and things like this, these fears pushed me to hone myself into looking inside myself, and that gave me the ability to see who I am in the reality that I was created in, which is not physical. Now, although I'm speaking to you and I'm a physical body, I'm in a physical body and I'm experiencing a physical world, and I'm having the same experiences as everybody else, because I don't believe I'm my body any longer. I've lost the fear of death, I've lost the fear of lack. It's taken a while, I must be honest. It's taken me years of going deeper and deeper into these fears, until eventually I see what they are. And it doesn't mean they don't come back to me. It doesn't mean that I don't suffer them occasionally. But I have now the ability to transcend them. I can go inside, I can see myself, I can see reality, I can see what I'm not, and I can see what I am. And the fears disappear because of that. Because all the fears are really the belief that we are the body and we are this reality. And this reality is basically everything outside of us we have no control over, which includes you and everybody else. This is why we fear governments and politicians and bankers and the rich and the powerful, because we're seeing them as having power over us. And this is why these people in authority use rules and laws to govern everybody and to control everybody, because they're thinking insanely, basically. Now, all the time we are in alignment with that kind of thinking, we're miscreated, and that miscreation is really bringing us lack. It's bringing us what is not serving us, what is not good for us, that is taking us deeper into hell, deeper into confusion, deeper into darkness. Because ultimately, outside, when we're not the body, when you come to the understanding that you're not the body, you kind of come to the place of, you realize that you are light. And if you think about the physical world, it's all being created from light. The light of the sun has made every element, and everything in the universe has come from the light of the suns. Every element that we know as physical came from the light of the suns. And so even on that level, you can see that we are actually light. It's in physical form, and it's actually just a slight reflection that we're seeing. We're not seeing the totality of the light, because the body won't allow that. Because the body is protecting the meaning of separation, which is really, it's protecting the belief of the ego, which you come to realize is leads us to hell, because to be separate from the wholeness of God, and to be separate from each other, is to be at war with everything, because everything is against us. The body, everything outside the body is going to basically destroy the body. You only got to tear the body, or many things can hurt the body. Everything outside of us can hurt us. You know, a rock can fall on us, a tree can fall on us, a car can hit us, we can get a disease, we can get a virus. You know, all these things can come to attack us, it seems like. But only because we believe we are separate, therefore we believe we are weak. Now, the minute that belief has gone, has left our minds, what remains is the strength of God, or the strength of the universe. And therefore, the enemy is not outside ourselves. Our best friend is outside ourselves. God becomes our greatest friend. Our inspiration for gratitude becomes endless. You know, it's expanded out into the cosmos, because all of a sudden we realize we're not this tiny little being in separation that is really just seen in darkness, but we are this cosmic being of light, which is really the meaning of Christ. You know, we are the light of God. We are the Son of God. And the sun and light have the same meaning. We are that. To see that inside ourselves is to see it in everyone else. Therefore, once you see it, you can't hurt anything else, because it makes no sense to hurt anything else. You know, because I know that if I hurt you, or if I hurt an animal, or I hurt anything, or if I destroy something, I am hurting myself. You know, and I will suffer that. And I can only hurt it because I am in ignorance. And it's always ignorance that we suffer. It's our own ignorance that we suffer. And even though we have education systems that we think are so intellectual and so knowledgeable, you know, when they're coming from the level of separation, what we think we know is really limited, is extremely limited, because the mind of God is not limited. The mind of God is free. And when we free our minds, or we open up our minds, and we take away we take away the barriers to the prison that we built around ourselves, the walls that we put around ourselves, the laws that we put around ourselves. Once those have gone, the mind opens up, and we realize that we are incredible, beautiful, innocent beings of light. And that's one of the things that you see when you realize that you're not the body, because the body is the ego is a symbol of guilt, you could say, because we had, you know, this is just a story, and it's not a true story. It's just a story, but it's got truth in it. So through one of my meditations, which I practice every morning, this morning what came to me was a vision. And I'm seeing this obviously with my eyes closed, because you don't need the eyes to see. In fact, seeing is not done with the eyes. Seeing is done with the mind. The eyes don't see. The eyes are limits on seeing. So real vision, real light happens in the mind. So this morning, during this meditation, I see that at some point in some distant past, when I wasn't physical, when I was spiritual and I was the Son of God, I made a decision to create like God. I wanted to create like God created. And in that moment, I fell asleep, because I've asked for the impossible to happen. Because in truth, I cannot create like God, because only God has the ability to do that. I can create like God in as much as I can create, you know, when I create with God, our will together creates. But if I want to do it alone, then I must fall asleep and I must dream of an illusion, because to do the impossible, in reality, one must be sleeping, one must be dreaming, and one must be in an illusion. So during this meditation this morning, I saw that in absolute innocence and in beauty and in heaven, that I made the decision to create like my Father creates. And in that moment, I fell asleep, which is really the story of the Garden of Eden. You know, we asked for an impossible thing. In the story of the Garden of Eden, they say we asked for wisdom, but we didn't ask for wisdom. We already had wisdom, because we was already in reality. So what we did, we ate the apple. You know, the story has been turned around. What we did is we ate the apple to fall asleep. You know, And then we fell from grace, because everything is given to us in reality. So we fell asleep and we fell from grace. We wasn't pushed out of heaven. We wasn't pushed out of heaven by a loving creator. We just fell asleep. So in reality, we're still there. And once we see this within ourselves, that we're still there, then everything else is going to change. But anyway, I've diverged here a little bit. So during this meditation, I see that it was absolute innocence which I made that decision in. And then during that sleep, which has lasted many, many thousands of years, I dreamed a dream that slowly became a hellish dream, because the moment I fell asleep, there was the experience of fear, because now I'm outside of heaven and I'm outside of reality, and I don't understand where I am, and therefore I've got to start creating my own reality. And this is the power of the mind. It is the instrument of creation, and because the mind is ours, we can create. But when we're outside of heaven, we're basically miscreating. Okay, so that was the beginning of fear, which then is the beginning of guilt, and then through that, shame and all the other, things, experiences that we have here became meaningful to us, or we gave meaning to them. And then for thousands of years we've been dreaming a dream. But then, because of these meditations that have taken me to this place of seeing myself truly, then what happened is that when I saw myself again, back as who I truly am, I realized that I'm back at that place of innocence again. And whatever happened in that dream, all the guilt, all the shame, all the fear, all the hurt, all the death, everything that happened in that dream became meaningless, because a bridge from the place where it started and the place where I ended, which was I started in innocence and I ended in innocence, a bridge had been made. And then by that bridge being made, everything in between was purified. So all the guilt and all the fear and everything became cleansed and purified. And that bridge was then the end of time, because that bridge is basically a return to the self. And all the time we are in time, we are not in the self. So it was almost like you get to see that actually time, once you start on the spiritual journey, time starts going backwards. All the time we're in the egoic body, time seems to go forwards, and we are always heading towards the unknown, hoping to get somewhere, or somewhere to get. But once you start on the spiritual journey, you start to realize time is going back. So we started in innocence in heaven, and that's where we are sleeping. And the dream happens, lasts thousands of years or however long, I don't know how long this dream has been going on. But then once self-realization happens, the time disappears, and we've actually gone back to the beginning, which is the state of innocence. So once you start on the spiritual journey, time is literally undoing itself. And then once that bridge happens, then the two are joined together, and everything in between, all the illusions that happened in between, disappear, because they're all purified, because everything we thought we did, we realize was not what we thought, and therefore we're not guilty, and therefore all those things that we thought we did against anyone or against ourselves actually didn't happen, because they were part of a dream. And therefore in that moment, the end and the beginning and the end come together, and that is the moment when the Great Spirit or God is revealed, put it that way. So all I can say is, if you are going through fears and traumas at the moment and suffering all these things, go into the fears, just focusing on the fears, And there's ways. Just ask for the truth. Keep asking for the truth. You want to know the truth, and allow God to guide you to the teachers that you need to align with. They might not necessarily be the highest teachers of knowledge or wisdom, but they will take you as far as they have gone. And then, as long as you just keep asking for the truth, you want to know the truth. What is the truth of this situation? What is the truth of this truth? What is the truth of this fear? As long as you keep asking that, you will be guided, and all the help will come to you, and the universe will basically bring everything to you that you need. All the time you look outside of yourself to answer these fears, get busy, try and make money, work, do all these kind of things. All the time you're doing that, you haven't got time to think. In fact, all you're doing is reacting. You're reacting out of fear. That's not thinking, and that's not creating. So this period of time that we're in at the moment, we actually have the opportunity to let go of all of that. We actually don't need to work for a living. We don't need to work. We don't need to pay taxes. We don't need to do any of this stuff, And in that, we won't need the health system. We won't need all those things, because, sickness starts in the mind, and the body's sick because the mind is sick. The body's not sick because of an outside influence. The body's sick because the mind has become sick. We've become sick. We've lost the knowledge of our innocence and our truth. Once that knowledge enters back into the mind again, basically you experience liberation. So this is a process of liberation we're going to at the moment. We're being honed. We're being squeezed. We're being squeezed until all the stuff is purified. We're being squeezed actually to answer more pertinent questions, more meaningful questions. Who am I? Who am I, and what is the meaning of this reality? And what is the truth? Keep asking. I want to know the truth. I don't want to know illusions. I don't want to know what's not truth. I just want to know the truth, because the truth must lie with our Creator. It must lie with God, It must lie in here, because that's where God is, because God is life, and we are that. So don't ask for the truth. Don't look outside for the truth. Look inside for the truth. By looking inside for the truth, you will realize the truth of the outside, because the outside is a projection of the inside. It's a projection of the mind. Everything we're seeing in the physical is a projection of the mind. What we're seeing is being experienced in the mind. What we're hearing is being experienced in the mind. None of this is what we think it is. As miraculous and as beautiful as the world is, we are miscreating. We're literally creating a hell for ourselves. And this is what we've been doing for a very long time now. And we've come to a point in humanity's progress that a change is happening. And we want to be on that boat. We want to be on that boat, but we don't want to be on it alone. We want to be on it with everybody, because everyone must be on that boat. We cannot leave anyone out. We cannot abandon anyone. If you think about the world, it's one sphere. It's one being. We are one people, whether we are black, brown, yellow, blue, or whatever color we are. We are one being, and we share one mind. And it's this coming together, this unifying concept of ourselves, that is basically our liberation and our salvation. Because then, once we realize that we are connected to ourselves, we realize that we are actually connected to everything, and their abundance happens, liberation happens, freedom happens, and life is seen eternal, and the fear of death becomes meaningless. So this is a beautiful, beautiful journey, super challenging. Do not doubt that it is super, super challenging, but this is such a profound and beautiful journey that I would love to share with anyone who's suffering or struggling with fears and all these kind of things, because it was fears that really got me to the place where I see myself now, and it is so different than what I saw before. And I want to share this with you because, you know, I cannot heal alone. I can only heal with you. And this is the path of, you know, this is the path of redemption. This is the path of freedom, you know, and I don't want to see anyone in hell. I don't want to see anyone trapped in hell. I don't want to see anyone trapped in prisons. I don't want to see anyone who's not free. I want to see everyone free and in the love and the light that is the truth of who we are. So, yes, you know, and by teaching this, you know, because this is what I'm doing, by teaching this, I'm learning it. This is the other thing about this whole spiritual journey. What you teach, you learn. And so what you give, you have. This is the whole different change of giving and receiving, is that you, in the world, we think giving, to give something, I must lose it, you know. But in reality, to give something is to have it. So I'm giving this so that I can have it, you know. I'm not doing it because I'm better than anyone else. I'm doing it because I actually want what I'm, you know, I want what I'm speaking about, you know, because it's so beautiful. The journey is journey of liberation, as challenging, as difficult as it can be. The goal, the final goal, the destination is basically heaven. It is profoundly beautiful. It is incredible. It is beyond belief, and it is cosmic. It is vast, and to see ourselves there is you know, what else are we going to do in this world? Are we just going to, you know, get a job, make money, you know, do this, do that, buy a car? You know, is that really all we're going to do? Is that really the goal of our life? Is, you know, to sit in front of the television and watch a movie, or you know, or is our journey here much greater than that? You know, are we actually gonna be who we truly are in reality? Are we actually gonna get out of hell? You know, because at the moment we are creating a hell for ourselves. We are creating a hell. We are miscreating a hell for ourselves, and we're leaving this for our children. Do we want to do that? Is that what we want to do? Do we want to leave our children a world that is more like hell than it is like heaven? You know, so I put this to you because I care. Because I know that you and I are the same and are one, and that you also think like I think. We might not think the same things at the moment, but ultimately we share the same mind, and our thoughts, when they are shared, they grow bigger and they become more abundant.